Hello my friends, it's the Game Boy Geek here, and today you're a matchmaker trying to get your friend ready for their date. But your friend is a zombie and they're so nervous that they're literally in pieces. Your job is to not only arrange the best date, but to help your zombie friend get back together. My Date with a Zombie is for 2 to 6 players, plays in about 10 to 30 minutes, is for ages 6 and up, and published by Game Time Again. It's on Kickstarter right now, so I'm going to show you how the game works, and I'll see you on the other side. This is a Kickstarter preview, so all the art and components you see here are not final, they're prototype. You're going to want to check the link in the description of this video to see all the final art and components. Here is the game setup for 3 players. Each player is going to have a hand of cards that are secret to other players that they'll have in their hand. They also have some bidding markers that they'll use to try to win bonus items that will be points at the end of the game. There's some scoring markers that you'll be able to get when you complete your zombie. And there's a draw pile and a discard pile. So here's what 3 players looks like set up. So let's go into detail about how the game works. Now here I have some cards laid out in front of me. These are the back sides of the cards. And over the course of the game, you're trying to put your zombie back together to be ready for the date. So we have a head, arms, legs, and a torso. So let me flip these over to show you what the other side of the cards look like. And there we have it. The head, the torso, the right hand, the right foot, the left foot, and the left hand. Now, these are always face down. So let's go into detail about how the game works. And you can always look at the cards of your zombie, but don't show anybody else. Here I flip them all up just to show you what it looks like. Now notice that these are all the same type, meaning color. It also has an icon in case you're colorblind. Now you're going to get a certain amount of points for your zombie at the end of the game depending on how you've built it. For example, the one I just showed you was a single date here in the upper right because it was all 5 of the same type or color. It's 50 points. On the upper left, it's a smorgasbord. You have all different color types. Bottom left, you have double dates, 40 points. If you have 3 of one color and 3 of another, essentially split half and half. And on the bottom right, you'll have a triple date is 30 points if you get 3 pair of 3 different colors. So essentially you're collecting cards of different sets and trying to create your zombie to get the most points, but there's different other things to think about as well. Now at the beginning of the game, each player is going to get some cards and they're going to go through a discarding process until they have 3, so you're somewhat selecting the cards that you start the game with. On your turn, you're taking 2 actions, then it's the next player's turn. One action you can take is place a card face down. You'll know what this is, but you're trying to build that zombie of the head, torso, legs, and arms as I mentioned before, and you place it, you're placing it where you want. Remember, you can always look at your own zombie cards, but don't show them to somebody else. Now another thing you could do is swap. Let's pretend this is how my zombie looked, and you know what? I have a card in my hand that would go better here than that one. I can put this face down and take this back into my hand. Swapping is one of the 2 actions you can take. Another action you could possibly take is drawing a card off the top of the pile or the top of the discard pile. Remember, you're only taking 2 actions on your turn. Now you can never have more than 5 cards at the end of your turn, but if you have 3 or more, you can discard those cards into the discard pile and draw 3. This is essentially sort of starting over with a new hand. Now on your turn, and it doesn't count as an action, you can trade any number of times with other players during your turn. Now you try not to give up too much information, like you might say, here's a foot, I'd like to get a hand. And you try not to say how much it is, exactly what it is, because you want to have some sense of not totally helping the other person out, but you possibly might be, but you might be getting helped as well. Another action you can take is placing or moving one of your bid tokens. Now, you can place it on one of these bonus tiles. If you have the most there, you might be able to score some bonus points there. I'll show you how that works at the end of the game, but whoever has the most has the opportunity of possibly doing so. So you can place one of these for an action, or you can move it from one to another. We'll talk about how these resolve at the end of the game, but essentially you're trying to have at least 2 cards of the type that you're winning in your zombie to get the full points of that bonus. Now you only have a certain amount of those bid markers, but you can discard one to take any single card from the discard pile, but also keep in mind that the bid markers you don't use at the end of the game are going to be worth 5 points. Now remember, you're only taking 2 actions, then it's the next player's turn clockwise. However, at the beginning of your turn, you can flip over your zombie so it's face up looking like this, and when you do so, you take one of these scoring markers. Now there's a certain amount of these out depending on the amount of players, and there's different values that you can change during setup to give the game different strategies. So it's like, I'm going to get this. Now, is doing this and going first worth the 50 extra points? Did I want to wait too long to try to get the higher scoring zombie? Those are some of the decisions you're making. Now, when you do that, you're essentially out of this specific game. You're done. You won't take any more turns. Now, the game can end in a few different ways. One is when the last scoring tile is taken, and in that case, it ends immediately. If the draw pile is emptied at the end of that player's turn, the game ends immediately. Or if a player turns over their zombie and they have a smorgasbord, meaning one of each of the 6 different types, then everyone else gets one more turn, then the game ends. Now at the end of the game, you would score for the type of completed zombie you have, as I show here with the different points, and I had mentioned earlier how this works. And anyone that has the most bid markers on one of these bonus tiles gets to claim the tile. And if you have at least 2 cards of that color/type, then you'll get 30 points. If not, you don't get the points. Keeping in mind, if it was tied with whoever had the most bid markers on here, no one would have gotten that tile. And any leftover markers you have are going to be worth 5 points. Now, if you had one of these types of zombies that typically will get you a certain amount of points, but you weren't able to flip it before the game ended, you get half of those amount of points. Now, this is the end of the game. You'll jot down the amount of points everyone got, and you'll play a number of these rounds depending on the amount of players, 1 round for each player, and whoever has the most points after all those is the winner. Now, there's also different variants you can play. You can play with a memory variant where once you put it face down, you cannot view it again unless you swap it out. You can also play with a casual variant where when building your zombie, you play it face up so all players can see your zombie cards. There's also a friendly or bet variant where in order to get points from here, you're essentially trying to put the cubes on the ones that you think are going to have the most cards of that color through everyone's zombies at the end of the game. You'll count up all the card types of each player's zombies, and if your cube was on the first, you'll get 25 points. For example, if there are more of these types of cards than anyone else, red would get 25. If it was in second place, you get 10 points, in third place, you get 5 points. So you're trying to put cubes on the 3 highest color or type of cards you think will be out at the end of the game. And you can also play a reverse variant. When turning in your zombie, you claim the lowest marker. Well, there you have my date with a zombie, and as I showed in the overview, it's a family-friendly, zombie-themed card game where you're trying to manage your hand, your zombie, and the choices of when to use the different actions throughout the game. Now, if you'd like to see all the final art and components and all the different pledge levels available, you can click the link below me in the description of this video. Now, that's going to take you directly to the Kickstarter project page, and I'm sure that Game Time Again would love your support.